Hello guys, my name is Gavin, and this will be a video on how to use try and except to determine whether or not an enemy is in the game, or whether or not the object you are by is an enemy in the game. I will be using some Python, and I'm just going to get started. To start off, let's right click on the camera and hit X and delete, and right click on this light and hit X and delete. Let's right click on our cube in the middle, drag this panel out, grab it really quick. I'm going to rename our object to player. I'm going to hit Shift and D to copy it and drag it off to one side and rename this new object from player.001 to enemy. Right click back on our player and let's go from defaults to game logic and go from Blender render to Blender game. With our player selected, let's add an always sensor, add a near sensor. Let's rename this to near lowercase. Set the distance and the reset distance to 10 and minimize this. Let's then add a keyboard sensor with tap selected. Let's have spacebar be the key, and let's rename this as space. Let's then add a Python controller and connect these like this. Let's now create a template by doing template Python and then game logic simple. Drag this out and delete the portion that I've highlighted. Hit Control and scroll up on your mouse to make your text larger and rename the script to gamescript.py or whatever you want to call it, and add that right here. The last thing we need to do is on our enemy object. Let's make it an actor because we're going to be using a near sensor in this. Now I'm going to hit game and then show physics visualization. And if we hit P now, we can see there's a bubble around our player. And this is essentially the radius of our near sensor. So if our player object will detect any object that goes within that range with actor selected, so like our enemy, and it will try and determine whether or not it's an actual enemy. We're going to code that right now. So we've got our near and our space bar sensors that we need to define. Let's have near is going to equal constant sensors near. Space is going to equal constant sensors space. If we're near an object, or if near.positive, what we're going to do is define targets is going to be equal to the near.hit object. If we press the space bar, we want it to determine whether or not it was if space.positive, we want to determine whether or not this object is an enemy now. So positive. So we're just going to have a try and except. So we're going to have try targets enemy health is going to minus or plus equal, let's say 1, and we'll print the enemy health to the console like this. But if the target doesn't have that property or except, what we're going to do is print this doesn't appear to be an enemy. So I'm just going to drag this out really quick. So you've got it. If our near sensor is positive, it'll define the variable name target to the object that it hits. If we press the space bar, it'll try and add it'll try and subtract health from this, and we'll print the target health to the console. But the except right here, if it doesn't appear to have that property, it will print this doesn't appear to be an enemy. Okay. I'm going to right click on our enemy object. I'm actually not going to do anything just yet, but I'm going to drag this in and do window and then toggle system console to open up the system console. And if we hit P now, and there's an error really quick. Oh, minus equal 1 right here. That's my bad. So if we hit P now, you can see every time I hit the space bar, it's going to print this doesn't appear to be an enemy because it doesn't have that property. But if I add the game property, and I'll call it enemy health, like this, and I'll set the value to 100, and I hit P now, you can see every time I hit the space bar, it'll subtract 1, and it will print that amount to the console. Alright, so that's how you use try and catch to determine whether or not an object in the game is an enemy. I hope you found this useful. Show you guys a script just for one more second.